Hello, travelers.
Welcome back to the Questing Hour
Welcome.
podcast.
The Questing Hour podcast.
And that's a little preview of the theme song.
I hope you guys like it because
Yeah.
you're gonna start hearing it every week now.
Yeah, just a little taste, a little taste of what's to come.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, last week we gave you two side quests, which were I always forget.
It was
Oh,
to
let the past die
yes.
to kill
I
your
don't know how you
past.
could forget.
I know it was such a good
Kill
one,
it.
and I actually did it too.
Yeah.
I
She's like, wow, I actually did this
I
quest.
actually did the quiz and I immediately forgot about it. No, but I did what I said I was gonna do, and I encased my credit card in duct tape, so I can't use
Yes.
it.
Oh my
Yeah,
God. Did you take a picture?
I will. Yeah, I will, and I'll post it.
Yes.
It looks so
Do
great.
it.
I wrote on a sticky note and I put clear tape over it, and it says, "Don't do it." Parentheses. Seriously, don't. So every time I look at it, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't.
I can't
And it's
do it,
also like
man.
6 layers of tape, so I can't get in there even if I wanted to.
Like so inconvenient.
I know. Yeah.
That's what I gotta freaking do. I gotta
Hmm.
actually I'm gonna do yours also because
Yeah.
all my credit cards are maxed out.
Yeah, I can't. I can't do it
I can't
anymore.
do it anymore.
I'm in my saving era, less in my spending era.
Yes,
Wink.
so we can be in our rich era.
Yeah, I'm trying to be a rich girl.
If I was a rich girl. Yeah, and then our Thursday quest was write your Canterbury Tale.
Yes.
Or write something to yourself and translate it into the Shakespearean English translator.
Yeah, so we already did that one and we shared it with you. So I hope you guys share it with us. Get to hear your silly little stories. They're so
Yeah.
fun.
I oh my gosh. That was still so fun to write
It
and read.
was.
It was
Yeah.
like I want to make more little tales.
I know, it's just so cute.
We could just put together a little book
Our Canterbury
of
Tales.
our Canterbury Tales.
Yeah. The
I
Questing
love
Hour
it.
Tales. I don't know, I kind of
Yes.
like it.
Pin it. Put a pin in it.
Put in that.
So this week we are kind of the rest of, this season is going to be a surprise, but we're kind of coming close to the end of our hero's journey.
Oh yeah.
So, what we wanted to get down and nerdy and dirty with you and talk
Mhm.
about The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and their adventures and how it relates to the hero's journey and how we can bring about talks of community and loneliness and why adventures and particularly the hero's journey is important.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So I read The Hobbit when I was in middle school, I think. And it's been a very long time. And then I saw the movies and I loved the movies. I think Martin Freeman is like one of the best actors of all time. I
Yes,
love I love him in everything he's
I
done.
first saw him in Sherlock
Yep. Yeah.
with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes, yeah.
Oh my god, obsessed.
He's in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie too.
Oh, I've never
And
seen that. I'm reading the
he
book
is
though.
so great. It is such a great movie. It's so
Oh,
good. Yeah.
I mean, the book so far is really good. It's
It's
pretty
incredible.
short, which I
It's pretty
assumed
easy
it was
read.
like
Hmm.
large, like a huge
Yeah, well, I have
Harry
that huge
Potter type
copy,
book.
but it's like all 6 books. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So the first book is fairly short, but
Hmm.
that's the one I'm reading right now, and it's so good.
It is so great. Maybe we'll talk about that later. It's not
Talk about
fantasy,
that
it's sci-fi,
later.
but it counts.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so I love The Hobbit. I love the story of just like a normal guy reluctantly being thrown into an adventure and then coming out on the other side, kind of loving it and being grateful for it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's I loved so I watched the movies first and I actually read the book in high school. So
Hmm.
like when we were reading it, I was like able to compare everything I had seen in the movie to
Oh
the
yeah.
book. So it was really interesting because usually the books come first when they're,
Hmm.
doing movie adaptations, which it did. But for me, it was like the movie came first. So it was really interesting
Yeah.
seeing it that way. But for those of our older generation, I know I grew up watching Lord of the Rings and I was
Hmm.
obsessed with it. And the main character of The Hobbit is a side character in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting seeing the contrast of how he is in The Lord of the Rings with how he is in The Hobbit. And that is the first thing I really noticed because
Yeah.
his reluctancy in The Hobbit to answer the call to adventure is so interesting because in the Lord of the Rings, he's like all ready for it. Like he's got that spirit. All the other hobbits know that he's different than them because he
Yeah.
doesn't want to be in the Shire and all this other stuff. But in the movies, the Hobbit movies, he's so like scared and reluctant. He is that, closed in his shell type of person who just wants things to stay the way they are.
Right? Yeah, and I think like I did watch Lord of the Rings first too, so don't learn that whole story. And
Mm-hmm.
then I learned the story of the Hobbit and just seeing that like switch in his personality and how that entire adventure, everything he went through, changed who he was as a person.
Yeah.
And then like Frodo and Sam and all the people that came to know him in the future, that's the only version they knew of him, was the one that loved
Yeah.
to be out of the Shire going on adventures, when really that was just the later half of his life. Like he had a whole different personality before he went on
Mm-hmm.
this adventure and changed. I
Yeah.
think that's so interesting how
It
you can
is.
know people at one point of your life and then completely do a 180 and be a completely different person and have a whole new set of friends and just
Oh
change
yeah.
everything about you just by doing something different in your life one day.
Yeah, I think I've said this to you before, and I've definitely said it to my friend now, where I'm like, if you had met me like right before I went to college in 2018, like you would
Yeah,
not recognize that person. You would not
right?
know who that is,
Hmm.
or probably even be friends with her. Like she is not
Oh, I
the
know.
same
Yeah.
person. And
Yeah.
it's just so weird, like looking back and thinking about it and just being like, wow, we really have changed. And like the people that we know and influence at one point in our lives, like, will not know the exact same version of us at a different point in our lives.
Yeah. That is crazy. Just how much we can change, how much our environment and the experiences that we have impact us.
Yeah.
Hmm. Another thing that I thought about when I was like reflecting on The Hobbit was the concept of home. Because
Mm.
at first, he is just him in his little hobbit hole.
Yeah.
He doesn't want anyone in, he doesn't want to go out, it's just him and his house. And then
Hmm.
by the end of it, he's like inviting people over for parties. He's leaving and coming and going whenever he wants. And his
Yep.
house is less of like a place where he's stuck in and more of just a place that he also goes along with all the other places in his life. And I think that's
Yes.
really interesting, just thinking about home as not just like a part of you, but as just another place that you go. Like I go to the store, I go here, and then I come home and I sleep, and then I go somewhere else and go on another adventure.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. And being able
Y-
to share that space with other people too, like bringing other people into your home. And it
Yeah.
becomes less of like a place of isolation and more of a place of community that you get to share with others.
Yeah. That's because in the beginning, he's like, uh, he receives his call to adventure like Gandalf brings this magical world into his ordinary and he's
Mhm.
like no I don't want none of that, don't worry about it. But then all of a sudden all these dwarves just start showing up at his house
Yeah.
and like they're singing and dancing and they're having fun, they're having a good time with each other. Meanwhile he's running around trying to clean up their messes, to save things from breaking,
Mhm.
and he's very stuck in his frame of this is my home, I don't want people in it, this is my routine, you're ruining my ordinary life and I like
Yep.
it the way that it is.
Mhm.
And that's where his reluctance comes from, where he ends up refusing the call because he's like, I want this little ordinary life, like this is fine. And in the chaos he's losing his mind. But then when the dwarves leave and after they offer the proposal to him and he refuses
Mhm.
it and the dwarves leave, he's sitting in his home by himself and he's like, wow, it's like really empty in here, like
Yeah.
this is weird now.
Mhm.
Like you
Right?
could see like the shift slowly happening of like, wait, why do I feel this way all of a sudden, that like my home doesn't feel like itself anymore? Like the idea of the
Yeah.
home being an entity is interesting because a lot of people say like especially with like emotions or with emotional partners and things like that, like
Hmm.
you can consider people your home, you know? So you can consider any place your home. You can consider yourself your home. And he got so tied up in the physicality of what his home should be like, he
Hmm.
forgot what home actually meant.
I love that. So when you all go on vacations, do you refer to like the hotel that you're staying in as home? Like if you're at the beach and you're like, okay, let's just go home for a little bit and then go back out.
Literally.
That's what I thought of when you were saying that because it's not the building that's my home. This random Airbnb on the side of the
Yeah.
road is not my home, but the people that I'm sharing it with on that vacation, they're my home.
Yeah.
So when we're going back home, we're just going to the place where we all share in that moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then yeah,
Exactly.
and then when all those doors left, he's like, "Whoa, I got a little taste of my home could be something than just me and this four walls."
Yeah.
And then they all left and it felt like something was missing immediately because
Hmm.
that call to adventure, those people that he shared that dinner with, those became his home super fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like it's different too, because like the hobbits in the Shire is all just hobbits. There's no
Hmm.
other things there besides hobbits,
Yeah.
right? And so he's living his life and he's kind of, you can tell he's kind of like secluded, almost black sheep type of vibes from the rest of the
Hmm.
hobbits because he just wants to keep to himself. But with the dwarves singing and dancing despite his racing mind, he gets his first sense of like real community, real
Yeah.
family, even though these people, half of them aren't even related to each other, you
Hmm.
know? And so he gets his real sense of that community. And I think that's part of what, like, I like to think that that's what part of what has dragged him out of the Hobbit hole. Because he does refuse the call. And then he's sitting there and he's like, actually, wait, I do want to go. So then he like packs his bag and he grabs all his things and he chases after Gandalf and the dwarfs to be
Yeah.
like, okay, fine, I'll help you on your journey, but I have rules. You know, still trying to bring his ordinary into this extraordinary world
Hmm.
that does not bend to the whims of his ordinary world. And so
Yeah.
that's where, like, you know, despite refusing the call and then ultimately accepting it, he still tries to drag his ordinary into it and
Hmm.
keep things in his little frame when that's not how life works.
Right. Like he's gonna have to sacrifice a lot more than he
Yeah.
thinks he's going to.
Learn a lesson
Yeah.
or kill his
Kill the rest.
routine,
Yeah.
kill his
Hmm.
ordinary world and this frame of life that he tried to mold life into, you know?
Yeah, he had to sacrifice that part of himself that always had to be in control, that had complete autonomy, had his own space, and he had
Yeah.
to let people in and accept that things were going to happen that he couldn't control. And he changed throughout the story in that. And
Hmm.
that change only happened when he left his isolated home and went into the world of his adventure.
So, yeah, Bilbo goes on
Mhm.
this journey.
Mhm.
And of course, his mentor is Gandalf, the one who summoned him into this extraordinary world.
Yeah.
As we are your mentors in your
We're Gandalf.
adventurous journey, we are Gandalf.
It's my beard.
I
Ugh.
call Gandalf the Gray.
Hmm. Oh, I'll be Gandalf the
Oh,
White. Yeah.
I was thinking about something. So like I didn't realize this. Like I never understood how Gandalf like came back to life, right?
Oh yeah.
So because he's Gandalf the Grey and he's kind of like an ordinary wizard, right?
Hmm.
But his soul is so magically pure that he resurrects into Gandalf the White.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way. And I heard someone talking about it on TikTok. And I was like, oh my
That's
God,
awesome.
wait, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's why he's so powerful. And then Saruman does not become, he's tainted.
Yeah.
He doesn't resurrect the same way Gandalf does.
That is pretty cool.
I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
I could talk about thing. I could talk about this all day.
Please do.
But the importance of Gandalf us is that a hero needs to learn from someone who has been in this
Yeah.
extraordinary
Hmm.
like world and universe, because like I said, Bilbo tries to like drag his ordinary life and routine into the extraordinary, and the
Hmm.
extraordinary does not play by his ordinary rules. he needs
Yeah.
Gandalf and even the dwarves to teach him how to go about doing this. And he's faced with all these challenges because there are enemies and are dangers around every corner that he doesn't know about. And his first crossing of the threshold is when the dwarves get kidnapped, I believe, by the trolls, like the goblin
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
And they're trying to roast up the dwarves, and he's the only one not captured, and he
Hmm.
has to save them. The only one who has
Yeah.
no idea about how this world works
Hmm.
is in charge of saving everybody else's life.
Gosh. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
this is the guy coming from the guy who was cleaning up after dinner time and making sure things weren't broken and trying to rush everyone out of his house, and here he is fighting trolls.
Gosh. Yeah. Just being thrust out of everything that he knows and having to let go of all the things in his personality that he feels like made him who he was. And then, like, having no idea on how to change yet. And just being
Yeah.
like, all I know is how to live in the Shire and be a little hobbit. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
That must have been so scary.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I think that, like, I don't think he ends up saving them. I think it's Gandalf who ends up coming to
Yeah.
save
Hmm.
him, or save them all, basically, because
Yeah.
he kind of messes it up and like makes it worse a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like that's where, it comes in, where it's like that's where he has almost his rock bottom moment, where he's like, "Oh shit, I'm not as good at this world as I thought I was."
Yeah. I have a lot of
He
learning to
has
do.
he has
Hmm.
his darkest night because he sits there for a minute and he's like, "Oh, we're all gonna die and it's my fault because I couldn't save y'all. I was
Yeah.
trying to be the same old person I always was,
Hmm.
and it was not helping. It was
Yeah.
no better for any of us."
Hmm.
And so after this, he ends up going through all these tests and tribulations and enemies and fighting like the spiders and all the
Hmm.
forest creatures. And he succeeds at all these little trials. He starts getting better and better, and we
Yeah.
slowly see him progressing. He freaking fights Smaug,
Yeah. A huge
Benedict
dragon.
Cumberbatch,
Uh,
the huge dragon, which that is my favorite one. That is my
yeah.
favorite
It's
movie.
so good.
The
It's
Desolation of
so good.
Smaug is
Yeah.
so
I love it.
good.
Hmm.
I love it.
It's incredible.
And for those of you who haven't seen The Hobbit, I will say The Hobbit gets a lot of backlash from people, especially Lord of the Rings fans, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because they don't like The Hobbit.
Oh.
Yeah. And
I
I'm
like that.
like, I love The Hobbit. I
I
love it.
prefer it.
I
Yeah. It's, in my opinion, it's easier to watch.
It is. It's easier to watch. I think it it immerses you, um I feel like, in the way Lord of the Rings tried to do, but it didn't
Hmm.
have the technology.
Yeah.
So, like, these are long movies, but I feel kind of hooked almost the whole time.
Hmm.
Whereas, like, Lord of the Rings, like, sometimes I get tired. I also thoroughly hate Frodo.
He's
So,
not great. He's
he's
bad.
literally like, I would rather
I
have the
can't
entire Lord
stand
of the Rings
him.
series about any other character. I
Oh my
cannot
God.
stand Frodo.
Cut out
But
Frodo. Make it
Bilbo,
about Samwise.
make it
I love
about Samwise.
Sam more than
I
anything.
love, yes,
Love that little guy.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I always think about that scene where like Frodo's about to throw it into the pit, and
Hmm.
Sam's like trying to be like, "Do it, Frodo! Stop
Yeah.
listening to the ring." And I'm
Hmm.
like, if Sam was the main character,
He would have just done it.
I would die.
It would have been there in
Like,
like
it would have
two
been
days.
so
Yeah.
much better, bro.
And the book would have been this long. Like six
I
pages.
know, seriously.
Sam said yes, and he had no problems, and he threw the ring. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And like, it's so, I
Hmm.
hate Frodo's character.
He's bad.
Sorry
He's
to
bad.
say it, y'all.
He's weak.
He's so weak.
He's weak. Samwise could never.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And so there's a part, oh my gosh, when Frodo meets Gollum and
Yeah.
Smeagol, and Smeagol ends up like Smeagol and Gollum like trick Frodo quite a few times and
Hmm.
kind of screw him over quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know what happened to my boy Bilbo?
Wha- He
He was
tricked him.
not.
He was not fooled.
He was not fooled. He
Yeah.
outfooled freaking he did like a what was it, the riddles where they were like
Yeah.
doing riddles back
What
and forth.
what do I have in my pocket?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to get the ring
Hmm.
from each other because Smeagol Gollum wanted the ring.
Yeah.
But it's just like I can't. But anyway, and the soundtrack
Yeah.
for The
Hmm.
Hobbit, oh, it's so good. It's so good.
It's so beautiful. Mhm.
I could go on and on.
I know.
But it's just like not only that, I started watching what's the show? The Rings of Power, I think it's called,
Yeah. Hmm.
where it's like the prequel to everything. So we see Galadriel, which is one of the elves that is in Lord of the Rings. I don't remember if she's in The Hobbit or not, but it's the long blonde hair elf.
Yeah.
She's the main character in the show.
Hmm.
And we see basically how the huge elven like empire and kingdom uh came to a collapse
Yeah.
and why they like hide in the woods now and stuff like that. But I think The Hobbit does a better job of immersing you into the world building without
Hmm.
being boring. And I think
Yeah.
that's easier to do, especially with like graphics. I think
Hmm.
Lord of the Rings was just ahead of its time and technology did not catch up until The
Right.
Hobbit.
Yeah. I also haven't watched them in a while, so I feel like if I watched them now with like appreciation for the story and the
Yeah.
filmmaking, then I would get it more and be more willing to sit through 4 hours of a movie.
I definitely well, I feel like if I were to be like, oh, let's watch The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, my inclination would be to watch The Hobbit.
Yeah.
But I will have a marathon and watch The Hobbit and then Lord of the Rings right after.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
even if it is 17 hours of my life I'll never get back,
Mhm.
I will watch them all
I
because I
feel like,
think they're
yeah,
all worthy.
I think so. I feel like those are spring movies. Like, you know how you watch
Yes.
Harry Potter in the fall or the winter? I think those are spring movies.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just the magical vibe
Yeah.
that, we get. But yeah, so Bilbo's on his quest. He goes through all these trials. He starts learning things about himself. We see he starts learning things about himself. He starts coming into basically his own
Yeah.
person, right? He's realizing that he's more than just a hobbit in the Shire
Hmm.
because he's never left the Shire until now.
Yeah. So he
And
didn't know what he could
that is
be.
something we were talking about last week.
Yep. If you never leave home, how are you going to know if you're somebody else outside of home?
Exactly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly. And yeah, and one of his major trials is, going through with I literally just said it. Smeagol and Gollum,
Hmm.
where he does a riddle to
Yeah.
get the ring and he escapes and the connections to the Lord of the Rings are honestly truly magical
Yeah.
because you always have to remember like the Hobbit comes first. So everything
Hmm.
that happens in the Hobbit has like almost a consequence in the Lord of the Rings. Like we find
Yeah.
because Frodo ends up meeting Smeagol and Gollum, and then he recognizes the ring, but we know that Bilbo is the reason he didn't have the ring,
Hmm.
and all this other stuff, and it's just like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh my
and
God.
so on and so forth.
Well, something that we wanted to talk about was the concept of third places,
Yes.
which I think comes in uh to play a lot in The Hobbit. Because so a third place is your home is your first place, work is considered the second place, and then third places are anything that isn't work or your home.
Yeah.
And it seems pretty obvious, but a lot of times people don't have a third place. They
Yeah.
just go work and home, work and
And
home.
and because of COVID, some people don't even have a second place.
Yeah, like
Like
yeah, mhm.
obviously Bilbo only had a first place.
Yeah, yeah. And so leaving the Shire was something that he had never even considered. Never considered what could happen in a third place.
Yeah.
But places like that are so important. Like we've talked about finding community and getting out of like your isolation that Bilbo had.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So like these are places that are like, anything but those other places like work and home. but in these places you find like-minded people, right? You
Yes.
find these people who are just like you. So for Bilbo, it would be like he thought he was different than the dwarves and Gandalf going on these crazy adventures, and he ultimately realizes he likes adventure probably more than any of them. He
Yeah.
loves the adrenaline. He loves the thrill of going on these journeys and going crazy. And we see that in how he's kind of nostalgic and melancholic in Lord of the Rings when he's writing about his tales before he ultimately disappears. And
Mhm.
so, like, we see these things, and that's why third places are important, though, because otherwise we don't experience that community, that like-mindedness. We are able to build ourselves as individuals away from home while simultaneously building a collective identity with people who are like-minded.
Yeah. I love that. Do you have any favorite third places in your life right now?
Bookstores or
Oh yeah.
coffee shops. Bookstores are
Yeah.
always my go-to because you always know everyone's gonna like someone is not afraid to walk up to you and be like, "Oh, how do you like that book?" Or like, "Have
Hmm.
you read that before?" Because I have, and blah blah blah. And then I've had more conversations in bookstores than I have in anywhere
Yeah.
else,
I love
honestly.
that. Yeah.
But I am definitely looking for places more like that, where like they're kind of hangout places. I
Hmm.
know it's hard because I was talking about this recently where like I feel like a lot of cities and places are eliminating these third spaces where like we don't really have a lot of parks anymore.
Yeah.
We don't really have a lot of arcades anymore. They're like, for example, in my hometown, I think back in the 70s, I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure, or 60s,
Hmm.
there used to be like a roller coaster like theme park at the edge of the beach, like kind
Whoa.
of like
Yeah.
Boardwalk in Jersey.
Hmm.
And it was like that, and then it was they took it down. Everything
Wow.
was gone, and now there's just like
Hmm.
food places and you can sit by the beach, but the beach is like dirty and gross because no one takes care of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they set a curfew so you can't even hang out there whenever
Oh,
you
that
want.
sucks.
Yeah. And so it's
Yeah.
like we don't have these things anymore besides like it's like okay, where can I go to not spend money? Like beside like
Exactly.
if I
Hmm.
didn't want to spend money or drive an hour to go to like a reservation or something.
Hmm.
There's only so much you can do outside of home and work that is acceptable now.
Yeah. I think in not to get too political, in our capitalistic society that only wants us to work and then go home and go to sleep so we can wake up and
And
do more work.
die.
Yeah, I mean, there's been like an active effort to remove third places. Like libraries aren't getting as much funding anymore, and that's a
Yeah.
place where you can go and learn and
For
connect with other
free.
people for
Free
free.
internet, free internet,
Yep.
free and most some libraries, not most. Some
Hmm.
libraries offer things like if you ask them, you can rent out like fire sticks or computers to take home with you so you
I've
don't
seen
have to
libraries rent
spend
out
your
like
money.
Xboxes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And they rent those things out for people to
Hmm.
borrow and things like that. And maybe that's an effort to get people coming to the library, but either way, that's a free opportunity. And if those libraries
Yeah.
aren't getting funding, then they
Hmm.
can't do those things anymore.
But yeah, public parks like aren't being taken care of. All
Or
these
there's like
places. Yeah.
curfews, and it's
Hmm.
also socially unacceptable for like teenagers and stuff to go hang out there anymore because people look at
Right?
you weird.
Yeah. If you have certain groups of people
Yeah.
hanging out in a place, people are gonna call the cops.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous, just this like active effort to keep people isolated from each other,
From each other.
which
And
is
that is,
so wild because
it's
that's
so
what our
horrifying.
lives are built on is each other,
It's
community.
connection.
Yeah.
Like,
And
it's,
you take that
yeah.
away and we have what? The Office? No, thank you.
The office.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this because some people are like, "Oh, like why don't you make friends at work?" And I'm like, "Those are my coworkers. Those are
Yeah.
not like we're here because we have to be here together.
Hmm.
Like you can be friends with your coworkers, but like I'm not gonna seek out friendships at my job. That is my second place. I would like to go to a third place with other people, with friends and
Yeah.
like-minded people."
Hmm. No,
And it's
I have a bunch of very close coworker friends that I do a bunch of things with in third places, but it is so important to have friends that you didn't meet at school, you
Or
didn't
at
meet
work,
through
or
work,
yeah.
that aren't you like your family.
Yeah.
Just people that you connect with because you have similar mindsets. And you
Yes.
can go to these third places and talk and learn about each other and connect about things that aren't capitalism. That is so
Exactly.
important to me.
I remember being in high school like thinking about like, oh,
Mhm.
where can I go that like doesn't require me to spend money?
Exactly, because I was
The
thinking
answer
about
is
my third
nowhere.
places. Yeah, my third places are like coffee shops, the
Yeah, like
movie
where I have
theater,
to buy
the
something.
karaoke bar, where I have to buy something to be there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like
Mhm.
and there's so many things that like would be, free type things where like
Mhm.
they're kind of shunned upon like outdoor gardens or community gardens are not
Mhm.
often available or people don't do them or whatever. But things like a third place are so important whether you're spending money or not
Mhm.
because it keeps us all connected. It keeps us all
Yeah.
together. We have a social well-being that comes from this, like I said, to create our collective identities and build up our
Yeah.
individualism outside of home and the workplace. And
Mhm.
I mean, a perfect example of this would be like, something as simple as, when people are like, oh, like, what's your customer service voice? You change your voice and your personality to
Yeah.
fit your job.
I talk about my work sona all the time.
You
Like,
work
I'm a
Sona,
different person at work.
exactly. I
Sorry,
like,
y'all.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like, is that you? Is that truly
Mhm.
you? Or did you just shape yourself so that your job was more palatable and you were more palatable for your job? You
Exactly.
know?
Mhm.
What's it called? The term third place comes from a 1989 book called The Great Good Place by a sociologist.
Hmm.
I think his name was Ray. I don't remember his last name.
Let's go, Ray.
But yeah, he talks
Mhm.
about why these things are important because I mean, honestly, in my opinion, the most important one is escaping loneliness.
Yeah.
Like, we get to escape loneliness, exchange our ideas, get ideas, be inspired by each other in at the same time while building up
Yeah.
these communities. You know what I mean? Especially in this day and age when everything is trying to tear us apart or separate us or split us into groups.
Mhm.
Third places are more important now than ever.
Exactly. Especially in the age of social media. Like, you can connect with people online when you're at work or
Mhm.
when you're at home, but you're not seeing them face to face. You're not getting a
Yeah, it's not the
one-on-one
same.
human, physical, touching skin connection. No hugs online, which is so sad.
Imagine.
So, yeah, I wish I could hug people online. I love y'all.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but yeah, I feel like in this like age that we live in with so much isolation and we're just going to work, going home, seeing people online through Instagram posts, the most radical thing that we can do is find these third places and make them for ourselves and
Seriously.
build a community whether the government or society wants us to or not.
Yeah.
Do it.
We get these safe spaces, we get
Mhm.
inclusive spaces, we get physical connection and expression of ourselves and ideas. We
Mhm.
find like-minded people. It's easier to normalize acceptance and normalize differences and normalize connecting with people when you're actually connecting with people. It's
Yeah.
it's not the sometimes like my online friendships, I love my online friends to death, but
Mhm.
sometimes I'm like, is this a real friendship? Like, I have no way of knowing if they feel the same about our friendship than I do because we're
Right.
online. We've never met each other in person.
Hmm.
For all I know, I'm being catfished. Like,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
it's just like you never really know because like this digital age creates these spaces for us that almost feel like third places but without all the benefits. We get
Right.
to we get to
Hmm.
escape into video games and escape into doing all these things, but I'm still in my house right now, y'all. I
Yeah.
did not leave to record this episode.
I'm at home. Yeah.
I'm literally sitting here.
Hmm.
But at the same time I'm socializing with Maggie, but it
Yeah.
doesn't feel the same. It doesn't
It would
give
be so
off the
much
same.
better if we lived together and we're neighbors.
And we live next door and we could go on
We
all
live
our
next
adventures
door.
together.
Yeah.
If only we could
One
see
day.
each other in person.
Dot dot dot.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so mhm.
I was gonna say something really smart and then I forgot it.
Oh no.
What was I gonna say? What was I gonna say? Okay.
Well, then I wrote a note. This is a quote
Yeah.
from the book, I believe. So I'm going to
Mhm.
read it kind of word for word. I'm making sure that is okay. Oh, I was looking through because I was like, I don't want to just talk about these third places and like not know what the heck I'm talking about
Oh
or
yeah.
whatever. So I'm gonna read some of my notes like I'm a little scientist because
Ooh, okay,
I
science.
wanted to bring the information. I didn't
No,
just
I
want
love
to
it. Yeah.
talk out of my butthole, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay, this says we shape each other and who we are develops through these social interactions. So we get safe
Mhm.
spaces, inclusivity, escaping for our comfort, bringing people together, catering to our imagination, supporting local businesses and or creators. So it's better to form and understand what community means when you're actually participating in the community.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we get acceptance, learning, sensitizing, normalizing our differences, putting ourselves in each other's shoes by socializing. How are you supposed to switch your perspective to understand your friend or your neighbor's life if you don't even know what their life is? If
Exactly.
you've never interacted with this person
Hmm.
before, I saw this guy on Twitter was coming at one of my streamer associates, I guess.
Hmm.
And he was basically saying that my associate was like talking about his depression just for engagement, for attention.
Hmm.
And he was like, you wouldn't know real depression if it slapped you in the face.
Oh.
And he was like, you have a wife, you have a kid, you have a job and a home, so you don't know what depression is like. And my associate was like, I was gonna fight back, but you know what? I just feel sorry for you
Hmm.
that you are so deep in the hole that you can't fathom the idea of other people feeling depression as well. Like,
Yeah.
just because your depression doesn't look the same as mine doesn't mean I'm not experiencing or feeling it.
Hmm.
Like Maggie and I's anxiety did not come out the same way. We talked about this
Yeah.
last week. She
Hmm.
was crippled up in bed. I was hallucinating. Like, but
Yeah.
we both still experienced severe anxiety. And it was just like so heartbreaking on both ends because I was like, I felt bad that my friend was being invalidated, especially with something so heavy when
Hmm.
no one knows his experience unless he
Yeah.
shares whatever parts he wants. And then I felt bad for the person who seemed so angry that someone
Yeah.
else could even try to claim they have the same issues as him when obviously he's going through some hard stuff and felt the
Yeah.
need to attack somebody.
Yeah, I can't imagine how lonely he must feel that he thinks he's the only person in the world that feels depression and
Yeah.
that nobody else can experience it in a similar or a different way.
Yeah.
And
And
so if you were in a community where you got to talk with different people and hear their experiences and, get to experience different
yeah.
points of view, then maybe he would see that, everyone experiences mental illness differently.
Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
better able to learn empathy and you're better able
Hmm.
to learn sympathy,
Yeah.
with yourself and other people because you're able to almost habitualize this socialization and all
Hmm.
the interactions you're going through and be able to create a habit of switching perspectives and
Yeah.
understanding other people based on your own socialization, based on
Hmm.
your own communities and the normalizing of all these different perspectives.
Yeah.
This says uh, society is created by humans and their interactions. So we get, this is how we get patterns and institutionalization of like different ideas and feelings and consensus agreements and like what works for people and everything else like that. But of course, we're all different. Um, but let's see. Oh, I like this. This is a quote, and I will explain it
Mhm.
afterwards. But it says, if men define situations as real, they are real in their consequences. So, like, in a way, it feels like, when people say, like, oh, your feelings are valid, like, or when someone tries to invalidate your feelings, even, it's
Mhm.
like, well, if this pain and this feeling is real to me, then the consequences of what actions happened to me are real. Like, these are real things that I'm experiencing and
Yeah.
going through.
Mhm.
And um this says like behavior can be determined by their subjective construction of reality rather than objective reality. So this I wanted to dive into loneliness a little bit
Yeah.
because loneliness can really be a killer. And I know we talked about this at some point where we were talking about like mind over matter, where like the
Mhm.
power of your mindset can really shift your reality. And not to get a little preachy about that, but like I was just saying, if you define your reality in a certain way, then your reality is going to play by those same rules because that
Mhm.
is how you've shaped the way that you view things. And if your, if your reality, because of the absence of these third places and spaces and the absence of community, is that you are lonely,
Mhm.
which can be the reality, it can manifest itself into physical symptoms and physical things that show.
Yeah.
You have a almost 50% higher chance of having heart disease and stroke when you are in social isolation. This is from the CDC. You can look it up.
Official. I'll put a
You
source at the bottom.
yeah, you have a higher chance of type 2 diabetes, addiction, depression, anxiety, early death, self-harm, and dementia. All of these things are linked to loneliness and
Just
social isolation.
loneliness.
Just
Yeah.
loneliness and social isolation. So without these third places, what is happening to us? What are we
Right?
doing?
Mhm.
If if Bilbo had never ran out to chase after Gandalf and the dwarves, what would have happened to him? Would we even have Frodo in the Lord of the Rings story?
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, that's wild. I think about the first humans and like whatever you believe about the beginning of creation and like the earth and the first people, they were always in groups. They were like tribes.
Mm-hmm.
There were Adam and Eve. There were always more than one person because they depended on each other to
Yeah.
survive and make it to where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's built in our DNA to not be alone. I mean, we need two people
Exactly.
to make another person. Like
Yeah.
you gotta have two people to make a person.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
It's just
That's
it's part of who we are, and when we don't have that community, like we shut down.
mhm.
And like you said about we get so used, like so trapped in our ways that like when something comes to change us, we don't know how to like we short circuit. Like that's what
Yeah.
Bilbo did. He was
Yeah.
so used to being this is my house, I'm alone. That's all I want to do is just be by myself in my hobbit house. When something came and interrupted that, he didn't know how to function. He just like short circuited, like his brain exploded.
Yeah.
I don't know how to operate.
It's like, oh, what do I do now?
Yeah. And then he was, thrust into that third space with a community of people, and he realized like that's what I've been missing. That's
Hmm.
the call to adventure isn't saving the world from Smaug or whatever. It's being a part of something bigger than myself.
Exactly. And then,
Hmm.
like you said before, like he ends up going back to the Shire and he has these parties. He
Yeah.
ends up going on ultimately more adventures later on.
Hmm.
And then we see in the beginning of Lord of the Rings, or it's either the beginning of Lord of the Rings or end of The Hobbit, we
Yeah.
see him older and we see him interacting. Like everyone in the Shire knows who Bilbo is now.
Yeah.
He has a
Hmm.
reputation. He knows people. He has a sense of community and
Hmm.
he has a completely different, better attitude and outlook on things than he
Hmm.
did in the very beginning of The Hobbit when he was
Yeah.
secluded and alone.
Hmm. And like you can tell, like it's not just a change; it's a positive change.
Yeah,
Like he's
exactly.
happier. The community is happier because he's a part of it. It's a lot of good changes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the importance of social connection, like, brings about a lot of things that we've talked about.
Hmm.
But you have the sense of belonging, you have the sense of being cared for, the
Hmm.
stability, and actually leads to better sleep, better habits, healthier habits,
Hmm.
longer life, better quality of life, and you probably have a more diverse understanding and a wider perspective than most people,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So
It makes us better
it
when
makes us
we're around other
better.
people.
Yeah.
I think
Eh,
about like love languages. Like the most
yes.
common love languages are quality time and physical touch, which are both mine. And I think just, being around people, sharing the same air, getting able to like shake hands and like hug and like friendly elbow nudges, like those things just they bring you so much joy, and
Yeah.
they can save your life. Just a friendly little like smile and nod at the grocery store to somebody. Like sometimes that's all people need to realize that the world exists outside of their brain.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's
Hmm.
I was about to say that sometimes like these social interactions like remind us that, we're all also human. I have like this
Yeah.
realization sometimes where I'm just like, "Oh my God, we are all living people. Like
Yeah.
we all exist at the same time."
We're all sentient human
We're
beings.
all everyone
Yeah.
has their own experiences and feelings. Like that is so
Crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
So freaking wild.
Hmm.
And that's not to say that like it's wrong if you value your alone time. You're allowed to be alone, you're
Exactly.
allowed to
Hmm.
recharge and refresh. This is like we're talking about in the extreme like you don't have like any social interaction whatsoever,
Hmm.
and like this is dire situation. This is not
Yeah.
not if
Like
you
no human
like your alone
connection.
time
Hmm.
occasionally. We're talking like no human connection at all
Yeah.
whatsoever.
It's not good. Please
Yeah.
reach out to us. We will
Or like,
connect.
yeah, or if you got that social anxiety, and
Hmm.
sometimes the answer to social anxiety is to be social.
I know
At
it
least
sucks.
from
It
my
is
own
hard.
experience, but it
Yeah.
sucks, but
Hmm.
that can be part of it.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, there's
like I said,
more.
like getting out of your head and just
Yeah.
focus on like, oh my God, I can't go outside, I can't talk to people, and just doing it and moving your consciousness from here to like here,
Here.
here, and be like, okay, I'm a full person. I'm not just an anxious little brain with little thunderclouds in
Literally
like a jail cell.
just a
Yeah,
jail cell.
just a little caged up brain in here and my little meat body
Yeah.
puppet walking around, and you're a full person. And sometimes that's all you need is just connect with somebody else and get out of your thoughts and just
Yeah.
experience something.
Yeah, and it's especially in moments with like anxiety and depression, it's like it's really important to like, those things often tell you that you're alone in what you're feeling. A
Hmm.
lot of mental illnesses tell you that you're alone in what you're feeling, and that's part of the problem. But the solution is that you're not alone. You are literally not.
Yeah.
There is a
Hmm.
whole community of people that most likely have had similar experiences or feel the same way you do.
Hmm.
We might
And
not have
yeah,
gotten anxiety the same way, but we both have anxiety, man.
experienced
I
it.
know how it
Hmm.
feels.
Yeah, and even if you feel like nobody around you has a similar mental illness as you, everybody has gone through something that they felt like they couldn't overcome.
Yeah,
Whether it was like a car wreck or they like lost their job, something bad has happened to everybody. We've all gone through it. And so, on
exactly.
some way or another, you can relate to everybody.
Yeah.
And in your community, where regardless of where you are, there are support groups, there are like writing groups, there are like LGBTQ communities that you can reach
Mm-hmm.
out to, there are events that you can go to, all of these things where you can find people that you can connect with, and they will have shared experiences with you. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that's kind of the gist of the importance of safe spaces
Yeah.
and third places and loneliness and all that jazz. We definitely went off the rails a little bit in talking about the Hobbit. It got real deep there,
It did.
guys,
We wrapped it back around.
but it was important.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
But yeah, so Bilbo goes through all his trials and tribulations. He fights Smaug. They end up going back to the Shire at some point. He has the ring, and he's arrived home, and he takes a deep breath, and he realizes how empty his Hobbit home is
Yeah.
and how empty the Shire is. And eventually, cut to, we see him writing his book that is the tale of all of his adventures to share with Frodo and future generations,
Hmm.
and then cut to the adventure continues with Frodo in the Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
where we see Bilbo closing up the book and putting it away
So good.
before he disappears.
Whoa.
So yeah, I think Bilbo learned a lot of things about what it meant to, have community, have, branching out into your out of your comfort zone, out of your routine. A
Yeah.
lot of the things that we've previously talked about in our episodes. So
Yeah.
I like that we talked about this.
Okay, hero's journey showing out.
Okay, we know what we're
It's real.
doing.
We didn't make it up. It's real.
Yeah. So, and guys, we didn't plan this either. It just turned out
Yeah,
this way.
that's just what happens. Yeah.
We just know stuff, that's
We're just
all.
really good podcasters, is all.
We're just so good at what
We're
we do.
pros. We are pros.
We are creative artists.
We are. Please sponsor us.
Just sponsor us.
Sponsor us.
Oh, whoa. She got loud there.
Sponsor us, please.
But yeah, I like that's why that's part of the reason why Maggie and I wanted to do this podcast too, is just like
Mhm.
create a group of like-minded people who enjoy
Yeah.
self-care, who enjoy adventure, who
Mhm.
are also in transitional periods of their lives. Like
Mhm.
we want to form this community and have this connection with you guys and have you guys be able to connect with us, because we, like I said, we're in a transitional period in our lives, and it's really sometimes hard to ground yourself in that time and find something
Yes.
to stick to.
Mhm.
So what we did was turn our hard emotional transitional life right now and turn it into something that is useful for us and hopefully other people.
Yeah. Taking something that might be scary and intimidating and turn it into a positive adventure that we can share with
Exactly.
more than just us.
Being intentional with our lives.
More intentional.
Oh,
Yeah.
for the adventure.
Yay! Oh, I was gonna say, through all of this, and when we talk about our side quests, this will come into play too. Something that's very important when you're seeking out a third place or trying to get out of your isolation is saying yes. And I know that one of my side quests at the
Yes,
beginning
man.
was to say no to more things. But in this case,
Now we're saying yes.
but now we're saying yes. Because you might get an invitation somewhere, or you might see an event, or like a flyer for a community that you think you'd want to be a part of. And in your mind, you're like, well, I don't really know. I don't want to get out of my house. I have like plans that day. I have work that day, and I'm gonna be tired.
I'm gonna be tired.
I'm gonna be tired
I gotta clean.
and yeah, I have all these little tiny things that I don't care about. I want to scroll on TikTok for 6 hours. And instead of just thinking that, just say, yes, that's something I want to do. So I'm gonna go do it.
Yeah.
And just, jumping out of your comfort zone, leaving the Shire and just being there and being
Yeah.
present in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely,
Mhm.
for me, I definitely look at some of the events that are going on around me and I'm like, oh, I want to go to that. And I never end up going.
Exactly.
But I'm like, why not just actually go?
Yeah,
Like,
just
what's
go.
stopping me besides myself? Because I am my own biggest enemy.
Mhm.
Like, what is stopping me besides myself? I did want
Yeah.
to recommend, since we're talking about, going to local events, definitely look at the Eventbrite app.
Oh yeah.
Eventbrite.
Hmm.
My friend told me about it and it's so nice. It's so easy. So, this week's quest, guys, is to look up your town's local events, whether it's on the Eventbrite app or Facebook or Instagram is a really good place. Like
Yeah.
literally every city has, like, you could just be like, whatever city you live in, and I can guarantee there's 100 freaking Instagrams for your community, like your
Oh
city's
yeah.
community, where
Hmm.
they'll post like new businesses opening, they'll highlight small businesses, they'll highlight like events going on or what people are running and everything like that. I can guarantee you, my city
Oh
has
yeah.
at least 6 of them that I follow.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm. Yeah, mine too.
so there's so much. There's always
Hmm.
something going on, I promise you. There's always some sort of, whether you think like your hobbies or your niche things are weird or strange or unpopular, I can guarantee you there's something somewhere in your
Yeah.
city for a
Hmm.
community for you.
Yeah. And especially in springtime, I feel like a lot more events pop up, like
Yes, yes,
makers markets, vintage markets,
yes.
farmers
Farmers
markets.
markets.
Yeah. New
Yes,
stores are opening, like community pools are opening back up. Just go to your community pool. If there's like a little like barbecue, Memorial Day is coming up, I think.
yes.
Yeah. Oh wait, it is. Yeah, I didn't know that. Renaissance fairs are back, baby. Renaissance
Yeah.
fairs. Renaissance fairs. Wink, wink.
Renaissance
For those
fairs.
for those listening on Spotify, we're winking a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not just silent, I swear.
But
So,
yeah, there's tons of events everywhere. And if there's not, make one. I don't know.
yeah,
There's gotta be though.
seriously. No,
Yeah.
seriously. Like, I know there's a lot of things on, like, if you join your town's, like, Facebook group, I know people post, like, events and things on there. You could
Mhm.
literally just be like, hey guys, me and some friends are going to do yoga down by the river. Like,
Yeah.
come join us for some yoga and food. And I'm sure, like, maybe you'll have a few people. But it
Right?
also sometimes could take persistence. Like, you got to
Hmm.
try to be a part of these things to actually form, connections or
Yeah.
find like-minded people. If you go to the same kind of event a few times, maybe you'll see the same few people and they'll be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, hey, I recognize you from last week." And
Hmm.
that's how things start. There has to be a beginning if y'all want to get to the middle and the end.
Right. You have to cross the threshold to get into the
Yes,
new magic world.
to get into the good
Hmm.
stuff.
The good
If
stuff.
you
Yeah.
want to become a butterfly, you have to go through the goopy cocoon.
You gotta become caterpillar juice and then you have to come out as a butterfly.
You gotta be swimming in the juices in order to morph.
Yeah. So swim in those juices this week. That is your quest.
Swim in the juices.
Start swimming in your caterpillar juice. I hate that.
Start swimming in your caterpillar juice. Go to some local events.
Yeah.
Or if you're not ready for that, then just simply find your third place. Find
Yeah, that's a good
something that
one.
is not
Hmm.
home or work. If you're not ready to be around people or branch out into your weird niche hobby,
Yeah. Yeah.
then go find your third place. Somewhere you can go like once a week to sit down, refresh, recharge away from everything else,
Mhm.
especially for those of you who still live in your hometown or live at home. Go
Yeah.
find a third place. Bring, if you have to bling. If you have to bring like your laptop and do some work. I know Maggie goes to a coffee shop to edit the podcast.
Yeah.
Like
Just getting out
even
of my house is
yes.
enough for me to just, even though I have my headphones on, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm in a
Yeah.
different place, surrounded by strangers. It helps to just get out of the physical cocoon that I've made for myself. Yeah.
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 Exactly. So
Mhm.
local event is your quest, or you have a side RE quest of finding a third place. So those are your
Yeah.
two options for this week.
I
Or
love it.
both.
Or both. Do both.
Do both.
Do both.
My dream, I'm manifesting. I have a whole line of businesses, y'all. That's the wrong
The
side.
business.
This is on my business
The
notes.
business journal.
All the business journal. I have a whole line of businesses that function as third places. And I
Yeah.
am manifesting that I will bring them to life because I want
I
nothing
can't wait.
more than community. I've said this before and I will always say I love connecting with people. I
Yeah.
love finding new people and learning their stories
I feel
and
like that's your
being
calling
around
for
them. It's
sure.
my
Hmm. Yeah.
calling. I love it. But
Yeah.
yes, find your third place, go to local town events, make a friend or not, that is okay.
Yeah.
But start nice and simple.
Mhm.
Eventbrite, Facebook, Instagram, the questing hour Instagram, Twitter.
Follow us there.
Follow us over there.
Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Tumblr, Reddit, YouTube, Spotify. Yeah.
Trust. We're
Pinterest.
everywhere.
We are everywhere. So follow us there everywhere. Connect with us online.
Yes.
Talk to us. Let us know how your quests are going.
Yep, and
Share
that's why we
with
have
us.
our
Yeah.
hashtag My Questing Hour, so we can connect as a community.
Yeah, so we can see all your beautiful quests.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So we will catch you here again on Thursday
Thursday.
for another little serious talk, but we have a light and fluffy quest for y'all.
We
That's not
do.
as serious, but it'll be a shorter episode, I swear, because
I hope you like feminist rants.
I
It's
hope you
kind of
like
our thing.
women.